Meghan Markle is a wantrepreneur. She has visions of grandeur when it comes to business, but every time she opens her mouth to talk about her business or others, she comes across as incredibly inept and devoid of any sort of semblance of business acumen. Whereas Princess Madeleine of Sweden, or Madeleine Bernadotte, as she goes in her business endeavors, comes across in a recent article and interview as incredibly intelligent and thoughtful in her business, along with having a husband, Christopher O'Neill, who is immensely successful in business and can offer her some very clear guidance. And she is entering into a wildly saturated field, which is skincare. But she has an angle that I truly believe can really help cement her line as something that is coveted because she's actually doing something that smart business people do. They're seeing a hole in the market and they're figuring out how to fill it with their products. That is good business strategy. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle is entering into another wildly saturated field of business, which is homewares, cookwares, confectionery, or whatever, and offering nothing unique, nothing interesting, nothing proprietary. In fact, her products are so boring after a couple of wild sellout moments, it feels like the brand has all of a sudden completely and utterly died. But Meghan Markle should have really no issue with that because the brand, of course, was always on the decline. So we are going to get into all these nitty and gritty details, guys, because there are some truly interesting things that you can learn by comparing Meghan and Madeleine here. Because Madeleine, if I had to choose between Meghan and Madeleine in terms of who to invest in, it'd be Madeleine all the way. So I'm going to explain to you why. But if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. I do provide compelling royal commentary. So please hit that subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you back. So, royals and business. Is this a match made in heaven or hell? It's sort of hard, you could say, to tell because royals who engage in any sort of business outside their royal sphere will hit a lot of roadblocks. And the reason is, and this is a good thing to start off with, is that if you are making some sort of money from the government or have at some point, when you are starting a business, the question always becomes, are you sort of using the influence you have as a royal to make money? And when it comes to Meghan's business, pretty much all her business endeavors at this point, the sole reason that she thinks people should watch or engage or whatever is because she's the Duchess of Sussex and really nothing else. All of her businesses so far, especially as ever, are being merely floated by her title. She makes sure her title is there all the time. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. She wants us to constantly look at that and utilize that as a reason to purchase her products. And that is extremely problematic because your product should be able to stand without your title attached. And when I see Princess Madeleine's business, I truly believe that yes, we all know what her title is. She was born the daughter of the king. She's actually his third child. He became king quite young. He actually married her mom after he was king. So she has always been royal. She has always had this title and influence, and she cannot escape it. But I genuinely believe here she had an idea and wanted to work with a company who could help bring her idea to reality because she saw something missing in the market. As a mom, she saw what her children wanted and there wasn't anything available for them. So she created it. That's brilliant. That is what good business people do. Meghan instead went into a wildly saturated market and is solely leaning on her title to sell things. Meanwhile, Madeleine's business, I truly believe when I look at it, is that people who have no clue who she is and do not care who she is would buy her product because it's a good idea for a product. And that is really, really smart on Madeleine's part. And I think it signifies what a success I think she'll have in the future with this. Now, if you're not familiar with Madeleine's line, I'm going to be a little bit careful in how I describe it because some people take this really wrong. But her line is called Min Lin. So Min meaning small, Lin is her nickname as a child and as an adult, I think as well. People call her Lin. Obviously, you don't call her that, but people who know her can call her that. And she noticed because, and this is true, young people and even children are starting to get interested in skincare because of what they see on TikTok and other social media. She was trying to find something for her kids that, especially her girls, that they could engage in and couldn't find anything. Yes, there were things for when you were a baby, but past that point, there really wasn't anything. And the things for adults in terms of skincare are too harsh, like contain retinol and those sorts of things, and should not be used by children. And so between this baby age and this, let's say, later teenager age, there's this actual huge gap in the market for children, preteens, those sorts of things. And I know people are going to say, oh, she's trying to market this to children. She's really not, but the idea here is really smart. Because think about it. Your daughter is watching you take your makeup off your face in the evening and she wants to do it with you. You guys should be able to have a spa day together. But what's in your face cream is too harsh for her skin as a child. So if you have the brand Min, you can actually both use it because it's meant to be used from baby to elderly. So Madeleine's mom can use it in addition to Madeleine's daughter. And so you're actually capturing a whole segment. And Minlin, I think, or at least in my vision, can actually become a key part of a mother and daughter relationship, like on a Sunday evening or something. They do each other's makeups together or whatever. That's smart. That's really, really smart. And it's 100% the case that more and more young people are in, like, including children, are getting into skincare and makeup. And if you make a product that can be used on them as skincare and make it with the packaging somewhat attractive to children, they may choose that over something that can severely damage their skin in the long run. It's really, really smart. Does anybody need more fruit spread or more peppermint tea in their life? Because guess what? There's a million peppermint teas out there that don't taste like toothpaste like this one does. And it becomes really apparent when you read Madeleine's argument sort of in a article that came out, and I think in a Swedish business journal. So we are going to look at this because I read it and I was like, they get it. They 100% get it. And I think Madeleine especially is very, very blessed to have a husband like Chris, who is so tuned in and so understanding of what is sort of like the big deal here. And it's really, really smart. So let's go ahead and read it. We won't read the whole thing, but I actually printed it out as PDF because I'll probably not stick with this publication. And I just was able to do that, which was fun. So we can kind of skip around here. But it's from DI Weekend. It stands for something. And so this launched on August 28th, and I wanted to read it, but it was behind a paywall. I wasn't sure if I wanted to pay, but this is well worth the paying. And they had to do this, start off, because this is important, understanding. And we will go to, and I will share with you some of what Meghan says about business. And you can tell the difference in the intelligence of the business discussion between Madeleine and Chris and Meghan. And so it talks about here in the beginning, we won't read all of this, but that they were initially going to do the interview at her home in the Ostermalm houses, where the king's horses, cars, and carriages, as well as several residents, reside. So they have a 7-room apartment in the building, and they've lived there for a year, but they were told no, they couldn't do the interview there after, quote, getting a no from the highest authority. So I want to point this out that Madeleine, even though I think I don't even see the issue with them doing the interview in the building, I can understand the implications and that she was told no and was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. We'll do it at the Welda's office. So that's really smart. So here are Madeleine and Chris. We've seen their pictures before, but I'm actually wearing what I'm sure is the same blazer as Madeleine. It's one of her Veronica Beard blazers. And so I got this one. And so I was like, I will wear this in honor of this interview. But he is about 8 years older than she is. He is American, British, and German. And obviously she is Swedish, but more German than Swedish. But she does sort of, they do this interview in English because Christopher, although he knows some Swedish, is not fluent. Madeleine obviously is. And most Swedes are fluent in English. Yes, we, and Americans, we are not as adept at certain things. But let's go ahead and get into some of the quotes here. So she says, "We knew my decision to start a commercial endeavor would stir up debate. I was prepared for that, but I was still shocked by how much criticism there was and the amount directed at me. I found it surprising that a woman and a mother now stepping into the world of entrepreneurship, it wasn't seen more positively. My intention when I posted on Instagram was mainly to announce the collaboration with Welda, not to advertise. There were also no products at that time," said Chris, "so it couldn't have been advertising for purchases. This was mainly an announcement that would be launched in the future." So obviously, she got a lot of clapback for that. Some of it has to do with, I guess, Welda and its connections to Welda, the company, because there's some like pseudoscience people who were connected to it, including Rudolf Steiner. So I wasn't able to read his whole Wikipedia page, but it describes him, just so you're aware, as an Austrian philosopher, occultist, social reformer, architect, esoteric, and claimed clairvoyant. So there was a group of pharmacists who gathered together to create Welda, which has more of like a holistic approach type of thing. And some people, I think, consider it sort of pseudoscience. It describes it up here, which I've never heard, as anthroposophy, which names means human wisdom and a movement that aims to unite natural science and spirituality. So I don't know much about that, but I just did want to point out that's where some of the criticism was coming from. And they do describe here that members of the royal family can be owners or part owners of business enterprises. There are also no constitutional obstacles for the royal family to own shares or stakes in companies. However, the royal family is restrictive when it comes to engaging in business activities. So you can be engaged in business, but you have to be careful how you advertise your engagement in that business. Because again, the thought is, are you using your royal title to sell the business, or is the business something that you can exist outside the royal title? So, Madeline goes on to say, some media also raise questions how I would be able to balance the role of being a public figure and at the same time manage this venture. I hope people understand that I run Minlin as Madeleine Bernadotte. I will not use my title. It's very important for us to do this in a way that is responsible and respectful to Madeleine's position, Christopher says. Given her public role, we respect the extra scrutiny, but we have followed all guidelines and she is allowed to have a commercial project. She is also the only member of the royal family who does not participate in the sovereign grant and therefore receives no allowance. Other family members do receive an allowance and also have commercial projects at the same time. So Madeleine is in a unique position where she should be much freer to run such a venture. And we have discussed it internally with the court and the family in detail, and it was approved. Again, this goes back to deep questions, of course, of what do spares do? Because if you are a spare, which Madeleine is, like, are you just supposed to sit on your butt for the rest of your life because you can't work? Because if you're not working for the monarchy, you can't work at all. Like, that's sort of stupid. So I think that if she has an idea and she's willing to pursue it, I think that's a great thing. And I also think that in this particular situation, if there were larger issues at play, Madeleine should, of course, everybody should be aware of that. But what else is she supposed to do? She has an idea and it's a good idea. And the thing is, she's not selling it because she's Madeleine Bernadotte. She's not selling it because she's Princess Madeleine. It's a good idea that can stand without a royal title attached. That's the key difference. I think in this suggestion between a wantrepreneur and an entrepreneur is that, at least in my estimation, somewhat, is Madeleine's business can exist without her title attached. Meghan's cannot. Meghan's is solely riding on her title, and that's it. And again, that's a problem and one that should be obviously discussed. So it says, Madeleine, this is your first business venture. How did you get the idea? She said, I had trouble finding the right products for my children. There are many good baby products, but when the children get older, they want something else. At the same time, I noticed, as did many others, this worrying growing trend of children buying advanced skincare they see on social media. But most of it isn't good for them, like serums with acids and retinol. So I noticed there was a gap in the market. Again, brilliant. There is a gap there. There is 100% a gap. And somebody might also try to fill that, taking a similar idea, but she was the first, and it's pretty smart as far as I'm aware. Madeline says it wasn't until she herself was pregnant with her first child that she started reading beauty product labels more carefully to learn exactly what was in the formulas. I wanted a product that was safe for the whole family. That was important to me, but starting something of our own, we began to discuss during the pandemic. So there, Madeline and Chris and their 3 kids. So we have Princess Leonor, Prince Nicholas, and Princess Adrian. So Chris talks about how he started analyzing the 12 biggest beauty brands in Nordics, comparing their financial statements 5 years back and their development. The size of Swedish brands was one reason they ultimately chose a non-Nordic partner. So I love this. He did his research. He actually really did his research and tried to understand the market and make sure that if they went with somebody who was Swedish, it was the best option. So he says the cost of breaking through with a new brand was enormous. All the brands I analyzed had good growth in the first years and then plateaued, but didn't make much profit. Kaya is the exception. TV celebrity Bianca Ingrosso's brand, editor's note. The reason is that Nordic market is of a limited size, and to break into the markets such as Germany, the UK, France, not to mention the US and Asia, much more capital is needed. Either you have to generate those sums yourself or consider bringing in more capital from the outside. So they spoke to several Swedish partners. He said, a fantastic company based in Sweden that was a third party manufacturer for several Nordic skincare brands. We really appreciated our conversations with them. But again, it was about the business model. And so there are Madeleine and Chris. So talks with Welda began in February 2023. The most important thing that Madeleine wouldn't just be the face of the brand. We didn't want a regular ambassador agreement. We also wanted to take our own risk with the company to show we are an active partner. So this is really, again, you feel his business intelligence here, and that he was a great person to guide her sort of through this process. We explored different collaboration models. The first was a joint venture, but under Swiss law, a JV is very costly. So our collaboration model is confidential, but I can describe it as a modified license agreement. We have invested a significant amount of capital ourselves and take our own financial risk for various trademark, legal, and brand related items. We own the brand, which we license to Welda. We're also responsible for defending it if someone infringes on our brand. So again, this is all actual business talk. Like, this is real business talk. And we will listen to Meghan Markle's Bloomberg interview again, and you can see the difference in intelligence here. What he's talking about, the risk, capital, a joint venture, licensing, brand deals, trademarks, legals, license, all these sorts of things. Very intelligent, very intelligent. So I have confidence in this brand because it sounds like he actually knows what he's talking about. Christopher O'Neill handles the financial and legal matters for the brand. Madeleine is the one who, together with Welda, developed the brand from scratch, the business plan with the right markets and target groups, as well as the product feel and consistency, scent, design, and product names. Goes on to say, I've always liked them and used their products. They have high credibility and quality and are very strict with their rules for how ingredients are sourced and produced, both ethically and sustainably. They are pioneers in the natural skincare. It also clicked immediately with CEO Tina Mueller. She understood our vision right away. They have long had strict quality controls on their products, which is incredibly important to us. But don't forget, Madeleine has international experience thanks to her work with childhood, not only in the USA, but also in Brazil and Germany. And we wanted bigger markets than just Sweden. I sort of love this, that he he's propping her up. He's encouraging, I think, and that's a lovely thing to see in their relationship, because he can kind of look a bit sour, but I love, there was a series of pictures I got at King Carl Gustaf's Golden Jubilee, and somehow her and Chris got really tickled about something, and they're there in the background, literally giggling to themselves, and I'm like, okay, I see it now. I see the relationship. They had an inside joke that just, I always really thought. This is so silly, but I'm like, I wonder if somebody let a toot rip on the top of the balcony and they just couldn't stop laughing about it. But she hid behind Chris at one point because she was so tickled and laughing so hard. And I sort of love that about them. And I love here that he's like, don't forget, Madeleine has international experience thanks to her work with childhood. And I think most people wouldn't consider that maybe all that impressive, but he does. And that's what really matters here. So they had an answer about this anthroposophical movement, which again, I'm not super familiar with. And so he answers the questions of, why this company, because it has this association. He says Tina Mueller was brought into Welda for several reasons. First, to renew the brand. The formula for their best-selling cream skin food is hundreds of years old and used by, for example, Bella Hadid and other celebrities. So the products don't need to change, but the brand image does. Again, very smart. Her focus has been entirely on skincare. If you look at the distribution between their two categories, skincare and natural medicine, the margins would be much higher if they split them. The ownership structure of Welda is a foundation based on the founder's view of anthroposophy. They see skincare as something that finances their medical approach. So we're aware of that. I myself have a background where these kind of natural products have always existed. My mother always used such things before trying anything else for minor pain or ailments. So I was comfortable with it, and Madeleine too. The criticism against Welda on that point from the Swedish press hasn't occurred internationally. It's interesting to note, isn't it? It was unfounded, misguided, and very well addressed by Tina's response to DN. But that was never why we chose Welda. And this is very, very intelligent approach here. So for them, it was mostly about the name. And so they explained the Minlin, the name, Madeleine's nickname. They're starting in Dutch region, which is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It's obviously launching in Sweden and then likely France, UK, and Netherlands. Third launch phase, Middle East, Asia, and the USA may be considered. We follow the markets where Welda is strong, which makes sense. So if Welda already has a big influence in these regions, it makes so much more sense because it wasn't a brand I was familiar with. It makes a lot more sense to focus on the areas where it is a strong contender rather than places where it isn't. So sales will take place online, in stores, through pharmacies. Prices for the first launch, both baby products and products for the whole family, such as cleansing cream, body lotion, and oil spray for hair and nails, are in the range from 129 to 349 Swedish krona. So I don't know Swedish krona. So Swedish krona to USD. So that's $37 at the high end range and $13 at the low end range. So I would say that's a good margin for skincare for sure. She says in Sweden, we will launch through Lyko. It feels very exciting. There has been so much work over the past years. So it will be fun for us, for both of us, and the children to finally see the products on the shelves. They've been involved in the whole process. This has grown into a family business, much thanks to the children's involvement. They have been very enthusiastic. It has to fit their hands. Pumps must be easy, scents and textures pleasant, and must not be sticky. Their opinions have been very valuable. So I'm going to guess it must not be sticky is something that she heard a lot. It can't be sticky. Can't be sticky, mom. So I kind of love that. You have worked on this venture for several years, but when you launch during a very volatile time, changes in the world politics, major conflicts, new tariffs, new trade tariffs, and daily discussions, isn't it a risky time to launch a new company? They said both yes and no. Tariffs don't affect us yet. The EU has a well-oiled, detailed regulatory framework for both beauty products and marketing. But when you enter other continents, if we go for the Middle East, Asia, and so on, it can be different. Just registering the trademarks in the new places is very costly. So it's not more risky now. He's like, no, we're investing long term. We don't look at the daily stock reactions. There are people like Warren Buffett who don't focus on daily fluctuations because he understands the underlying asset. And if you understand the underlying asset, daily pricing isn't as important. Same here. We believe in this product both for the consumer and from a commercial perspective, despite launching in turbulent times. Can you describe the customer you want to reach? We want this to be a brand for the whole family. Often it's the mother who makes the buying decisions for these products, but nowadays children and tweens are much more interested. One criticism I received was, why are you selling these products to children? But I want to phrase it differently. The trend is already here. This is true. It's not something we're trying to create. Rather, we want to offer a great alternative. Again, very smart. She knows her market. So do you have models? So she mentions Anita. Actually, it's Christopher O'Neill who mentions Anita Roderick, who started the Body Shop. An Estee Lauder, Kylie Cosmetics, Kaya, to understand how their business model works. For Madeleine, it's completely different because of her background. So to understand how to do it differently, you also have to see how they do it. So talk about beauty on TikTok. She says you have to be very careful not to target children on TikTok. It's a balancing act on social media. Hopefully the products will speak for themselves, but here we trust Welda's marketing team, even though we approve the ideas. Madeleine will appear when the campaign is launched in some content, but not in any major advertising campaign. So again, her face is not going to be what sells it. They want the quality of the brand to sell the product, not Madeleine. Big difference there. So, they ask them at home on children on social media. Like, they don't allow social media. Their oldest has a phone, but no social media. And Christopher adds, can you as a parent completely control what your children see? For example, on YouTube? No. But some countries have set 16-year age limit for social media, which I think is the right way to go. So there's Madeleine, very pretty. Oh my gosh, her blue eyes just kill me. I'm like, they're so blue and pretty. So she says, children today are much more advanced than we were at that age. That's why I think regarding this beauty trend, let's have a conversation about the content of beauty products instead. And it's actually bad that they learn about it. That's that it's healthy to wash off sunscreen at the end of the day in the sun and then use moisturizing cream afterwards. That's good and shouldn't be lumped together with children starting to use makeup too early, as some critics do. So it talks a little bit, more about their personal lives and then, kind of the differences between all the different markets. And he says everything works so well here in Sweden. In the US, people sometimes still use paper checks. It's crazy. But the USA is so big with 50 states that have to cooperate. That's why you see with the current administration, they're trying to sort it out. But the system is very outdated. Even filing taxes is extremely complicated and takes a long time. It requires hundreds of pages of paperwork. Here, it's just a few clicks on the tax agency's website and it's done. But I had trouble getting used to 5 or 6 weeks of vacation. I've had 10 vacation days a year for my whole life. So it's is a different life philosophy. But if you look at the happiness levels, it seems to work. I would have to agree as Americans, your first job usually generally it's 10 days vacation. And then you might have 5 to 10 days of sick day if you're lucky. Sometimes some companies is just 10 days and you have to use it for either travel or sick. And 10 days would just never feel like enough. I had another company where I think I had 15, which was really nice because you want 1 week off for Christmas, of course. And you should be able to take, let's say, another vacation that year. But, maybe there's a couple days during the year at some point that you just need a vacation day. So there's Christopher and Madeline at the interview. And I like this question. And so, asking about the royal family and what do you think people should know about it? And Christopher goes, I can think of many things, but I'll keep them to myself. It's like best not to step in it. He's like, but you go ahead, he says to Madeline. So she says, I think maybe people don't know that I have trouble being the center of attention. I've never really liked it. People might think I'm not easy to approach, but it's more because I'm shy. My whole life has been placed in front of the media and asked questions about myself, but I don't feel comfortable with it. Now that I'm an entrepreneur and building my own brand, it's something I really work hard on. Sitting here and doing an interview doesn't come naturally to me, but getting to talk about a project we've created ourselves, that's very different. I really enjoy that. I admire people who start their own businesses. It's an amazing achievement. I also think that it's good that our children see that they have two parents working on this. That I, as a mother, had an idea and carried it out, and I want my children to be able to do that too. So that is the end of the article. Again, I think it's a really interesting. And again, we need to compare because why do I rag on Meghan so much? Listen to her talk about her business and you can see the comparisons. And I'll just, but before we do that, sorry, I'm thinking out loud here, thinking through. Let's talk about the difference between wantrepreneur and entrepreneur because it's something that Mark Cuban kind of defined. And you can see and hear, think about what you heard in the Madeleine interview and then think about Meghan Markle. So, what embodies an entrepreneur is starts small and acts fast, embraces the power of broke, loves the process, values learning and adaptation. And a entrepreneur is an inspiring business owner who falls short on execution. They may have a great list of ideas, but often find reasons why they can't start. Key traits include inaction over execution. Well, entrepreneurs constantly talk about their business plans, but rarely take concrete steps to make them a reality. As Cuban puts it, an entrepreneur just does it, and an entrepreneur wants to do it, but they always have an excuse. Fear of failure, risk aversion is a major roadblock for entrepreneurs. I would say Megan's kind of reflection of risk aversion is doing the scarcity tactic. She didn't want to risk maybe it flopping. So she artificially generated buzz by releasing very limited quantities and highlighting that. But the danger with that is once it stops working, then your limitations of your business are just wildly evident. And it says waiting for the perfect time to start a business, focusing on money over passion. Entrepreneurs see profit as a result of hard work and passion. Entrepreneurs often prioritize quick money. I'd say Megan feels like that a bit. Overthinking and inflexibility. Instead of testing ideas and adapting, entrepreneurs get stuck in endless planning and overanalyzing. Initial concept meets setback. They may abandon it entirely instead of innovating. Say one reflection of that for Megan is when she was more interested in how things looked in the box than the product themselves. So let's go ahead and listen to, again, a little bit of Megan on Bloomberg because you just got to feel the comparison here. So let's go ahead and watch.
Meghan wouldn't share sales figures for As Ever, but so far, most of its inventory has quickly sold out.
It's not anymore. Just pointing that out.
As Ever is also cooking. Just had another launch.
Yes.
The rosé sold out also in less than an hour.
44 minutes. I was shocked.
How do you keep up with demand?
If you're shocked, then like I question a lot, but it's just all artifice.
When you sell out that quickly, it's a double-edged sword because it's an incredible thing to happen for any small business and any startup. And at the same time, you don't get the same metrics and learnings about which SKUs and products are the most coveted because it's all gone immediately.
I feel like that's a weird note to take. It's like, oh, well, we can't decide which products are the most popular. Okay. But you kind of had generic products. And the interest, of course, was always going to be like, you don't even know that on the first launch, to be quite honest. You know that on the second round. What sells out faster the second round? Because people at that point who are maybe reordering have had the time and the chance to test the product. And they will let you know which product they want to reorder because that's a true test. Yeah, if you sell out of everything, good. You should get everything back up in a week and then see which products are starting to move faster, which go quicker. That's the true metric. And so when she says that, it's immediately sus to me because of course you don't know. It's the second week, Meghan. It's not the first time. It's the second time. That's a bigger answer.
So then we prepped for the second seasonal drop and 10x'd our inventory.
10x from what? She had, let's say, 100 the first time. Maybe she had 1,000 the second time, 20 the first time, 200 the second time. Like that means nothing. It's kind of like I had somebody who they sent me an email because I did a video on the lack of the Meghan effect. And they're like, well, I sold these necklaces and Meghan mentioned them or wore them and it's sold out. I'm like, okay, that's great. Good for you. The question is, how many did you have in inventory? If you had 20 to 50, that's not that impressive. It's much more impressive when you have 20,000 in inventory and are out of all of them. I didn't ask them that question because I didn't want to be super rude. If they want to think the Meghan effect worked, hey, more power to you, whatever. But the reality remains, it's not just that things moved one time. Do they move time and time again? And how many did you have in stock initially to move products? How many? If you didn't have that many, then her selling out your products becomes much, much less impressive. The true numbers here actually do matter. Again, if she had 1,000, then she had 10,000, that maybe is a little bit more impressive, but still not that much. If you're having 100,000, a million in inventory, then you're starting to get into impressive numbers selling out. But if you only had, let's say, at most 2,000 products and you sold out in an hour, that becomes much less impressive. It really honestly does, given the profile she has.
And thought for sure that would at least last for a couple weeks.
So again, right now she's doing the scarcity tactic. She's 100% doing the scarcity tactic because she mentioned she wanted it to just last a couple weeks. Why not? If these are going to be your premier, like your staple, if these are going to be your staple products, why not keep them all the time? Why do short burst launches? It's kind of a really, really dumb idea.
That sold out in a couple hours.
And now it's been a couple of weeks. And guess what? None of it's sold out. Kind of sucks when it happens. Starts to happen, doesn't it? And again, the question is, was she relying on the scarcity tactic again? Was she stocking correctly? We won't know, but the question should never exist because you should always stock correctly in the first place. That's the way you don't have stupid questions later.
Suddenly the conversation goes from at the start of this year talking about a few thousand jars and lids to we need to do a purchase order of 1 million. And that's
so think about what she's saying. Well, we went from, thinking we needed to order 1,000 jars to 1 million. Oh, and then, you have Christopher and Madeleine over here talking about, well, we needed to figure out the capital. We need to figure out what markets we can get in readily and easily. It's easier to get through the EU than it is for markets in the US and Middle East. You have tariffs to deal with and these sorts of things. And we wanted to make sure our products were good and that people liked the products. You never hear Meghan talking about people actually liking the products. And a million order is impressive, but it's just a number to throw out to look impressive rather than actually being impressive.
It's a huge jump in just a few months of starting a business.
And the plan is to go global.
Yes, absolutely.
How long does it take?
I thought that was yes, absolutely. But what phase? What anything? Like it's just very bland. It's just not a lot. And you just get the sense that she really hasn't thought about it that much. She just wants to go global. She doesn't understand the intricacies of going global.
To develop each product? What's that process like?
Oh, goodness. I'm exasperated in some ways by that, only because it is such a tedious proposition to.
I mean, think about compare that to Madeleine and Chris. They knew the answers to their products. They know their products. They're not being overly dramatic going, I'm exasperated. It takes so long. It's so hard. They know what products they're looking for. They actually didn't even talk about their products that much. It was more about this is what the business is. And I feel comfortable again investing in them as a business because they actually seem to know their products and metrics and markets and everything like that. Whereas Meghan's going, it's so hard. Like, I don't care. What's your business? Like, I feel like I know nothing about Meghan's business yet. She's talking a lot about business, but it's very generic and bad.
Scale your own home recipe to something at mass and maintain the same, not just quality, but the same flavor that you're able to do at home.
This is kind of like when she goes through this, because I've listened to this a little bit, because I was initially going to guys put these clips in later, but I was like, okay, well, I can pull it directly into the feed so we can talk about it. But when she talks about this, I just get the sense like she really just does not know anything. And she's talking about, well, my cobbler recipe, like scaling that up. Some things actually aren't scalable. And she's not talking, does anybody want her cobbler? I don't know. She's talking about cobbler next up here and talking about her homemade recipes. Well, does that explain why she's constantly using non-branded jars to do certain things in her videos? Is because she's not actually using her own products, because what we get is actually not her recipe. It's inspired by her recipe. It even says it on the website. It's inspired by it. It's not her recipe. So, and how are we supposed to judge whether or not it's actually her recipe or not? And it's not very good. And this is a problem with a product that she's selling, is that it requires people to have a level of taste to it or like the taste, and not everybody will.
And I think any home cook would say that. If you say, great, can you make your cobbler that I love? I say, great, of course I can make my cobbler. Great, can you make 1 million cobblers? Can you teach someone how to make 1 million cobblers that taste just like the one that you have at home?
That is never going to happen. That is never, ever going to happen. It's a dumb even suggestion and thing to talk about, is that somehow some people are going to want your cobbler, Meghan. I don't even want your spread. I don't even want your tea. It's all bad. And so this whole scenario just reads to me as absurd and delusional. It's not grounded in real business. It's just delusional.
I also have to be conscious of, people who really understand canning can say the bricks method, when you're going at scale. Now I'm going to get a little nerdy.
Yeah. No. When she starts, it's so performative. It's so performative. It's so ridiculous how stupid and performative this is. Like, give me a break. Does she not think we can all see this? I just don't understand.
I'm here with you.
I can tell the details.
But there's a lot of detail in it. There's lots of tiny nuances that I don't think people would think about.
And she doesn't really, because she pays people to do that. She's not thinking about this stuff. She's not in this business. Really? She has other people to do it.
And then make sure that it can come out the way that feels reflective of what I make at home.
What about
You don't use what you make at home. Like, Meghan, you don't even use your own stuff.
pricing? Like, how did you determine your pricing strategy? Like, what are the margins?
Yes.
So this is where we get to, and the last thing we'll focus on here real quick is the imaginary consumer of Meghan Markle's products.
The pricing, I think, is key. From my standpoint, I know where I came from. I remember being in high school and having my after school job, and all I wanted to do was save up to buy a shirt that said BB.
Yes.
Right?
Because it was a name brand and a good brand. And clothing is much different, and clothing makes much more sense for teenagers. Kind of like skincare. Teenagers want to buy skincare. They don't want to buy jam.
And
I
just
have a lot
said
of
BB.
BBs.
And if you could get the one with the rhinestone BB, you really made it. And I always think about that version of me, who there might be a brand or a person that you look up to and you want to have a piece of what they're sharing in the world.
This again, you get the sense of a true delusional believer, like the wide eyes, the cult leader going, follow me, follow me. I have the ideas and the delusions. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work in business. I want real things here. I don't want this. I don't want the wide-eyed, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, fanciful story of a non-existent customer. I want true metrics.
And that can't be something that is out of price range. That can't be something that is so aspirational, you're never going to be able to afford it. So there is something I think really important in that the first hero product was this $9 jar of jam, which my 15-year-old self would have been able to buy.
Meghan, your 15-year-old self would have never purchased your own spread. I don't even think you use your own spread you're selling. I think you use other things. I think you still do your make from home stuff and ignore your products. That's what I think, because she doesn't show us the labels of her products because she's not using them. She hasn't even used 1 second of her apricot spread and her orange marmalade. We have never seen her actually consume either of those. But again, think about the Madeleine interview, how intelligent she came across, how much they thought about their market, their products, and how they wanted it to impact young people, and thought about their own kids and how they wanted these things to impact their own kids well. And then think about Meghan Markle and the delusional consumer that I don't think exists anywhere other than her head. And if you were to invest in any product, I would invest in Min. I think that has the potential to go places. Will it go super far? I mean, some of the branding I would say leans a little bit more to the childish edge than you would like. But at the same time, if a mother and daughter can do it together, I really think they should emphasize moms and daughters doing it together. I think it's a huge hero winner product. I think it is. I would buy it. I'm looking forward to finally getting to be able to purchase it at some point. But having purchased Meghan's stuff to review it, I can say for certain all of her stuff is just mid to mediocre. And she's trying to sell it simply based on her title as the Duchess of Sussex. Whereas Madeleine of Bernadotte, also known as Madeleine of Sweden, is wanting you to buy her products because she believes her products are good, because she's trying to create the best products. And she doesn't have to be front and center out there to sell it, because it doesn't require her to make it successful. It's successful because it's a good idea. It fits a niche in the market. Madeleine Bernadotte is an entrepreneur, whereas Meghan Markle remains a wantrepreneur. She has made some money off her brand, but she's not moving fast enough. She's not being innovative enough. And I'm sorry, but the only thing I see in the future for as ever is failure. But guys, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you again very soon. Bye.